let's get going. So good morning, everyone. My name is Byung. I'm a career strategist working at the Academic Advising and Career Center, UTSC. So one of my job is helping students to prepare for their grad school, especially U of T students have a lot of questions regarding preparing for the grad school. So we love research, we love study more. So today is our last session out of this full series, and let's get going. Before I actually begin, I'd like to introduce Wendy. Wendy, are you there?
Hi, Byung.
Hi, Wendy. So Wendy is my colleague at the AACC. She's an employment program coordinator, and then she's have a great ideas of all these grad school application as well. So she's going to monitoring the chat box, and she's going to answer many of your questions. So feel free to using our chat box to ask any questions. However, I'm going to stop every sections at the end of each topics. Then I'm going to review some of those important questions so we can discuss briefly, and then moving on to the next question. So thank you, Wendy. All right, so let's move on. So these 4 sessions were like this. We start last week. So where to begin? How we're gonna actually make a decision, and then we talk about some of those requirements, academic and non-academic. And then this Tuesday, we just spoke about CV and personal statement, which is very important documents to grad school. And today is the last session, but it's very important session. We are going to cover 3 things: funding, which is you need money to support your education, and references, which is absolutely important for grad school, how to get this and how should we approach for this. And then admission interview, which a lot of school actually asking for it. So that's the last stage of your grad school. So let's get going. Reviewing past the 3 sessions briefly then. How about that? So in our first session, we discussed, where to begin. So how should we make our decision to go for grad school? So important thing that we discuss is ask yourself these questions before you're making decisions. So what are my career options? What I like to do in my life? It's a big question. So sorry. One of the tips that I like to share with you is making a short-term career goal first. Okay, you don't have to make a whole life plan, but as you need to aim certain thing to achieve within next 5 years or so, and that is giving you a good way to measure your grad school application. So that's something you want to be clear. If you're not really sure what to do, maybe you want to speak with one of our career counselors in our career centers that might be helping you. After that, you can decide what degree, what certificate, what programs might help you to achieve that goal. And then the last things you really want to ask yourself is knowing your limitation. Financially, are you ready? Academically, are you ready? Geographically, are you willing to relocate to the new locations to study this, another education? You have to ask this realistic question first before you're making a decision. Okay, that's what we discussed, but there are way more things we discussed. And then we discuss about requirements. So some of those common things we discussed is, do I need to take an admission test? Depends, not every school need it. How to prepare for these kind of tests. So I actually share those information. So I want you to check those recordings if you need to. I want to go to XYZ school program. What do I need? Read their admission requirement page thoroughly, because they do have a lot of good answers in it. However, not every answers are clear. In that case, I suggest to contact the admission officers directly. Every grad school has admission officers and they have contact information. You need to speak to them directly because they are the best person to answer your question, specific questions, including GPA question, prep courses question, anything. So don't be afraid. And some student was kind of afraid of contacting them because of what if they see me as a not really, right candidate for them? No, they don't do that. They really appreciate your approach to clarify. So approach that. What are the GPA requirement? We discussed about that. It's like depending on school, but higher is better, but lower doesn't mean you cannot make it. So you really need to see all those other application requirements. Do I need to take a particular courses? Depends. Not every grad school asking you to take a courses, but if they do, they clearly mention it. Do I need research experience? If you're going for research degree program, 100%. If it's not, then it's optional. And if you have it, that's great. If you don't have it, that's totally fine for lots of those course-based and then non-research degree programs. Do I need work experience? More is better, but it's not like mandatory. But there are certain grad school, they actually really focusing on your diverse experience. So I just have to say more diverse experience is better. And then CV and statement, sorry. We actually discussed very detailed about how to develop the CV and how CV is different than resume. And what are the things that we need to include in our personal statement. To be honest, personal statement is the most important document in one of, beside the reference, I guess, the document that you need to work on it. So don't just write it one time draft and okay, that's it. No, get some help from many people, like peer support, people like me, writing centers. There are many places you can get this kind of support to review your personal statement. We are not going to write it for you, but we're definitely going to look at it and say, well, it doesn't look, flow. It doesn't answer the question. We actually giving you that kind of advice. So we discuss all those things. I really want you to take a look at some other workshops or our recordings to see the more details about the CV and personal statement, because it takes a really long time to develop the good one. So today, let's get into these three important topics: fundings, reference, and admission interview. So let me ask you some questions. Have you considered how you are going to afford your further education? Just ask yourself, have you? You're thinking about grad school, but have you actually thought about how am I supposed to afford? Right? So I want you to think about it, because this is an important question. When I actually apply my grad school, I have some saving, but then I have to measure it. If I had to use my saving, how am I going to pay my rent and all those things? I really have to measure it. So that's going to give me an idea that when I'm actually going to apply for grad school, that kind of thing. So I really want you to think about it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about this. Next question is, have you spoken to your professors about your further education plan? I just want to know from you guys, have you spoke to any professor? Can you just say like, yeah, I did it. You could actually put it on the chat box if you don't mind. Yes, I did. I spoke, whatever, I will just give you a couple of seconds to think about it. Oh yeah, quite a few. Oh, some, no, I haven't. Yes, kinda. Okay, I don't know what's that mean, kinda. But yeah, not yet. Okay. I think that's actually fair expectation that I have from you guys. Some actually did yes. Many of them probably. Some people think I kind of talked, but I didn't really ask for the reference. Yeah, that's good. But that's really good to start with it. So let's talk about how we're gonna approach these references, and not just references, getting a good advice from the profs. What grad school programs do require admission interview? This is a quiz. Okay, so it's a mini quiz. What grad school programs do you think require admission interview? What do you think? I don't know, maybe you are applying one of those grad school that require admission interview, or maybe you already checked it out. Law and medical school, I think so. And biotech, probably, yeah. Master of biotech, yeah, which is popular program. If it's a popular program, they usually do. Anything else you know about any admission interview? All right. MPH, Master of Public Health. I think some, yes, they do, absolutely. Clinical psychology, possible, because it is a very competitive program. If it's popular and competitive program, even though they are not mentioning on their website, they are going to have an interview, they might actually giving an interview. Yeah, it's kind of last minute things they usually do, especially if it's competitive program and there are a lot of candidates and you are one of those finalists and they really have to measure it, right? Then they actually decide, okay, let's have an interview with these students, right? It's not an official process. It's just additional things. So sometimes it happens. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So think about it. I mean, you never know when you're going to have this admission interview, but it's not going to happen when you are applying, right? So usually when you apply, everything submitted, and then they're going to contact you if they need it. So let's start with some common questions that we are getting from students about these topics. Does OSAP cover grad school studies? Do you think OSAP cover grad school study? What do you think? Yes, no? Yes, they do. Yeah, some say I hope. Okay, so they do cover it, just like they are actually covering your undergrads. So there are many conditions, right? So that's you really have to see it with the financial aid officers to see if you are qualified, because maybe you already have a lot of student loan. So that's probably giving them a little bit of those barriers. Especially if you are going for the Ontario the school as a grad school, yeah, pretty much there's no problem. Even though you are going across the other provinces, they do have those coverage programs. So I really recommend you to talk to financial aid officers if you are actually applying for those. Is there a scholarship for grad school? I think you probably know the answer 100%. Way more than undergraduate program. I mean, when you apply undergraduate program, probably scholarship that you can have is entrance scholarship, that kind of things, pretty much. Now there are some private, fundings, private scholarship, which is the extra things. But when you go to the grad school itself does have a lot of opportunity. They actually making a list. I'm gonna show you that. I'm gonna show you as an example from the UT. So do not miss out. If you don't apply, they don't give it to you. It's not automatic, okay? So don't think, oh, they're gonna just give me automatically if I'm qualified. No, you have to apply. That's why you need to know what kind of scholarships and grants and bursary is available. How many references do I need? It's a very common question I'm getting. What do you think? How many? 2 to 3. Anyone else? 2 to 3, 2 to 3. Okay. So everybody said 2 to 3. N is 2. Yes, you are right. N is 2. N is 2. No grad school asking just 1. Minimum 2. But that 2 could be only academic or mixed, 2 academic and 1 extra as a professional. Totally depending on grad school. So you have to really carefully what kind of reference they need. I'm gonna go detail about this. Whom should I talk to about my references? I think you know whom you should talk to, but there are a little bit delicate matters. Of course, professors, but there are a few things you need to know about, who could be the best references, okay? I'm gonna go back to that. So can someone other than professor provide reference? Yes, basically speaking, yes, but that shouldn't be your primary reference. Your professor should be the top 1, 2 references. The rest could be someone else. Does every grad school require admission interview? No, but it's more and more common. As I mentioned, it could be informal. It could be not official, but last minute they just toasting out. By the way, we'd like to have a mini interview with you. It's possible. What do they ask in the admission interview? I have a list and I'm gonna go through it. Okay, so student loan. Let's get into it. We discussed about OSAP, and yes, they cover. It's a loan, means you're borrowing money and you have to pay back. That's how it is. There are graduate school awards and scholarship, which is what? You don't have to pay back. That's great. So you have to apply for it. And you have to apply, you have to be qualified. And there are no guarantee that you're gonna get it, but there is a decent amount of, students are getting it. So you should definitely look into it. So what I'm actually going to show you is the U of T website. So this is a School of Graduate Studies at the U of T. If you are going for other university, I'm pretty sure each university has something like School of Graduate Studies Department, something like that. You better visit their website, and they usually have a list of those awards and grants and scholarship, blah, 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 those things. So U of T has a huge list. So if you go click the awards and funding underneath, and we have lots of things here, and they categorize with master's degree. By the way, I'm just want to double check if you guys can see the screen that I'm sharing.
Yes, we can.
Thank you, because I just want to make sure sometimes it's not happening. So here is award opportunity for master's degree. So this is it. This is like a whole, I mean, there are more. And there's a award opportunity for doctoral degree and award opportunities for postdoc. Okay, basically there are 3 categories: master's, doctoral, and postdoc. For you guys, master's first, right? And they have a way more, so I'm not gonna go too much of those. But few things that you should know is, one is CGS. It's a federal level, Canada Graduate Scholarship. I think that's the name. I'm not 200% sure. But CGS is a federal level scholarship. They're giving out to 3 different categories of the research area. So it's a pretty broad, and it's a pretty big money they are actually giving out. Of course, you have to be qualified, but it is research oriented a lot. So if you're a research student, you're going for those one of those science research, art, social science research, that kind of research, and you are accepted by the program, then you should be definitely eligible to apply these grants. It's a grant, means that you get the money and then spend for your education. That's it. Ontario has its own, which is Ontario's graduate scholarship. A little bit less money, but it's like $5,000 per session, and you can have up to 2 times 10,000. That's pretty big. And so what I'm saying is these 2 is a little bit open to every Ontario and permanent resident and Canadians. So sorry, international student is not eligible for these 2 scholarships, but there are more than just this. So if I click find more, they have a list of a lot of scholarship and grant. They are all different target they have it. And they have a citizenship category, which is some is international only, and some is domestic and international together. Some is domestic only. So you can definitely see. And some is doctoral degree and master's degree. Some is doctoral only. So just take a look at it. It's fun to look at all those opportunities you could have. Of course, right now your focus should be application to getting into the program. But once you are getting into the program and we're in the process of doing it, take a look at it. It's a good way for you to making a list. These are the scholarships that I am eligible to apply, and apply. There's no reason not to, because then you might get a chance. I've seen quite a few students, they actually spend quite a few hours to do this, and giving them enough income, to be honest, to support their education. Why not? Okay, so starting from this School of Graduate Study awards and funding list is a smart idea. The other one I like to introduce is this website, GrantMe.ca. It's a Canadian website. It's pretty smart. It's not government things. It's just they are having sort of online platform to sorting out, okay, you have a question about scholarship, so they have this scholarship, click it, and they're asking you a bunch of questions. Hey, are you a student or parents? And then they asking you a little bit of those individual questions. Are you a current student? What are you aiming? What's your family income? And based on that, they're actually giving you a list of those scholarship or a bursary that might be available for you. And you can start from there. So it's kind of an easy tool. So this is not targeting only for like one particular university. It's just over Canada, and possibly they might actually introduce you to the US grad school too. So I just want to give you this as a extra resource. But also GrantMe, I believe they do have a tool that you can actually track down all your application, and that's convenient. So you can actually, okay, I'm gonna apply this, I'm gonna apply this, I'm gonna apply this. Just like a job posting, you're applying and you're making a list of it. It's similar kind of concept. So it's a free. So why not, right? So I like to suggest these two as a great resource to start your funding searching. Okay, so I mentioned about this GrantMe. Maybe the last option is your piggy bank. So if you have a big piggy bank, then go for it. There might be a good supporting. So I mentioned about this School of Graduate Studies. I already show you the website. So take a look at it. I'm not gonna go back there. So this is the part of this our funding. Any particular question do you think we should go for it about this funding issue? I think I've seen some question. Wendy, would you mind giving me a little bit of highlight of this question?
Yeah, there's a few questions here. So the first one is, well, since we're talking about funding, actually, I'll go with this one first. So it says, so once we get approved to join a master's program, can we apply for these awards?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So read a little bit of those eligibility. Some actually say like you could apply if you are one of these kind of studies. Mostly they have a condition, you have to get accepted by the program. If you're not accepted by program, of course, you're not gonna get it. So you can apply even before you apply some program, some scholarship opportunity, but most of them probably you don't have to rush. You got accepted by the program, then you apply. Because you don't have to rush to get this money right now because your program is not starting until probably next year, September, right? So take your time. I'm just introducing you these options. So that's good. Yeah, thank you. So I think I answered that question.
There's also one about references, so just backtracking a bit. I heard that if you're out of school for 5 years, you won't have to provide academic references. Is that true? I'm just wondering because usually when you're out of school, it's hard to keep in contact with professors. How do you keep those connections after graduating?
All right, good question, but that's not true. Well, I applied my grad school, how many years? 8 years after I finished my undergrads. I have to providing a minimum 1 or 2 academic reference, so from the professors, and that I was able to provide the professional reference as an optional. But it was a little difficult, absolutely. But we can talk about a little bit more about the references. But so my suggestion right now, I mean, even before we starting the reference section, you better keep in touch. It's not easy, but if you have any plan to go back to grad school in the any future, it's important to keep in touch with at least a couple of or more professors, just giving them a little bit of update. Hi, props, I'm doing well. I'm doing this kind of thing these days. Hope you're doing well. That kind of email. That's more than enough. And then keep in touch. Okay. So it's important to keep in touch. But then if you have a lot of experience in the society, you might get more professional references, but you've got to have at least minimum 1 academic references because someone has to prove it you have a good academic ability. So that's important. Thank you. Okay, is there anything else should we visit or
That's it for now.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's move on. So let's move on to the reference. Okay, we just spoke about the reference, so this is the good segue. What is reference? It's not a piece of paper. I don't want to say that, but it's actually proof that you have a good ability in terms of academic performance. See, when you apply the job, it's about proof that you were doing good job in your previous job. That's the reference, right? So someone actually, managers or colleagues or whoever, has to say it. Same goes to academic reference for the grad school. And this time, it's not from your supervisor, it's from your professor who was giving you the lecture, who was giving you the class, lab time, all of those things. That's why it's important to have professor's reference. If you don't have a professor's reference, it's really difficult to persuade grad school to believe that you have that academic verification. So first professor, second professor, third might be someone else outside. Don't rely on your internship that you have done last summer and their managers gonna be your grad school reference. That's very weak reference. Even though you provide to them, they might accept it. They don't consider it as strong. If you don't have a strong reference, they are not gonna accept you. I'm not kidding. That is very important, okay? Who to ask? Professors. When to ask? As early as possible, meaning not actually directly asking them, could you give me a reference? No. Making an initial talk with the professors. If they have any ideas about any advice to you, and if they have a willingness, they're not gonna prepare the reference now for your application next year, January. So just to have a conversation with the profs. And if they said, yeah, sure, when is the deadline? Just let me know, remind me, something like that. And then you actually have to make sure reminding the professors maybe a month before the deadline, and then you actually follow up. It has to be that way. How to ask? You could ask in person if you have a chance. That's the best, but because it's pandemic time, you know, virtual meeting should be okay. I usually asking people to meet with the professors initially during their office hours. Every professor has office hours, that's their time to spend with the students. So you better do that. And asking some questions regarding your further education, asking their opinion. I think I like to study these kind of things. What do you think? And then you actually inspire me a lot from your class about that kind of topics. I'm thinking about this kind of grad school. What do you think? And then prof says, you know what? Profs love to talk about their research. Profs love to talk about their area of, studies. Start from there, okay? And then you can actually move on to, oh, so the grad school, they actually require references. Do you think it's possible you can be my reference? That's the kind of a good flow to make that, request. You never met the profs. They don't even remember you, but you maybe took this person's class before, and then you're just sending an email and say, okay, could you give me my reference? It's not really professional. And they might say yes, because they feel like responsible, but they don't even know you. That means they are not gonna be your strong reference. Remember, the reference has to be strong, not just mediocre reference. Mediocre reference doesn't go anywhere. Okay. I'm gonna show you this sample email, but I recommend you to have a meeting with props before you sending this email. So that way props has some idea about you, and then you sending this little bit more official looking request saying, dear props, I hope that you are doing well for this summer. I'm writing today because I decided to finally, maybe you can remind them, after our conversation last time, I made my decisions. I like to pursue my grad school for the year 2022. So I'm actually, application is due by January. So I'm preparing for all these things right now. I actually took your courses for the last couple of semesters. And you really gave me a great inspiration and a great, skills developing these kind of stuff. Just I want to give them a little bit of compliment. And so here is my request, if you could be my reference, okay? And optionally, you can mention about a little bit of those highlight of your academic things, like my GPA, or maybe particularly the course that you took it from the props. During the course from you, I actually did this kind of papers, and you gave me a really great feedback, and you gave me a good marks. So I really want to appreciate that. And then that's another thing that I want you to consider when you actually writing a reference for me. Why not, right? There is a proof. So you actually have to utilize all those things that you have discussed with the props, any course material that you actually develop for the props, something like that. So this is a sample. I'm gonna share this slide after this. So you will get this, or you can actually watch the recording too. So this is a sample reference request. Okay, I recommend you to talk to props during their office hours, even before sending this. Okay. What kind of reference form that we can expect is it could be open-ended. They can actually have a letter, just the typical traditional format. But more and more these days, grad school, they're asking the props, whoever the referee. I mean, referee means the person who's writing a reference letter for you. They actually sending, you actually have to share the link to the person with whatever those number that you were given. And that the referee actually click the link and put the whatever the information they were given. And then they have to fill up the form. That's how it is. That's how it happened. So once you fill up those forms and they actually complete their reference. So open-ended letter could be possible, but a lot of time these days, they actually using this online form. Okay, so don't be surprised for different format of these references. Again, what kind of content they're asking? Your academic ability. It's not about your work ability. Okay, it's a grad school, means they want to see how were you doing during your classes, during your school. That's why professor is the best person to give you the reference. And they could say something about potential. I believe Byung can be a great grad school student in your program because I noticed he has been doing a great he has been showing great enthusiasm about these kind of topics, and I believe he can do better in your program too. Something like that, they might say it. And they even asking rank of your characteristic from 1 to 10. How would you like rank these students, these kind of competencies, something like that. It's all confidential. You are not supposed to know anything about this. Once the link to share with your referee, and they have to do it. If they decide to share whatever they think did it for you, with you, it's up to them, but you are not supposed to. Okay, so that is about reference, and I'm gonna move to the interview after this. So let's actually take a look at it if we have any important question that I need to answer it. Can I take
Hi, Byung. We have a
yes,
few. So I'll just read them out to you. Are these funding opportunities exclusive to applicants entering or newly accepted? Are there more opportunities for students who are already enrolled? So it's a funding question.
Oh, I see. So just quickly answer that question. Depending on funding, because it's depending on the scholarship. So you really need to read each scholarship. They have a different name. There is like some international only scholarship, blah, blah, blah. So they do have eligibility, right? But most of fundings are not just the newly accepted student. Like they actually could apply each semester. So for example, the Ontario grad school funding, that's $5,000 for each semester, each session. So you could apply in your second year if you missed your first year, something like that. But absolutely it's best to apply. Once you got accepted by any grad school, that's the time. Take a look at every single one of them and then, oh, this is something I'm eligible, apply for. I think that's the best timing. So not now, but once you got accepted by the program. Thank you.
Okay, the next few questions are about reaching out and references. So the first one is, should we ask professors who are from the same field we are applying to in grad school?
Yeah. Okay, so yes and no question for that matters, because yes, it's the best. However, let's say your major was psychology, but you're applying for some sort of technical area, which is not directly related to psychology, which doesn't require any particular major. So your props is from psychology, not necessarily from any technology area, which is fine then. You don't have to get the reference from those technology professors. your psychology professor who can say good about you, who can say you have a good academic ability, not the knowledge. They are not talking about knowledge, okay? When you go to the grad school, the knowledge you're gonna learn from it, but they want to know your ability to perform. So that's what your professor need to prove it. So it's totally okay if your props are different subject area. But let's say you graduate psychology and you're going for the master of psychology, better get the psychology props. You know what I mean? Especially if it's a research oriented degree, I really think you should get your area of study. You know what I mean? Because the research is like pretty much undergraduate, and similar program you go for the graduate, right? So you gotta have some props who was able to teaching you a little bit of those area. So that's my answer for that. Professional degree, you don't have to stick with your major subject professors, but it's good too. Thank you.
So the next question is more about timing. So is it sufficient to reach out a month in advance?
Okay, so months advance is just for the reminder is the best timing. So I want you to contact props as soon as you made a decision to go for grad school, or even before, just making a contact with the props. So let's say deadline is in November, and now it's already October. You better contact them right away. If deadline is in February next year, good time to contact now, making an initial conversation, and then get some kind of verbal agreements that they might actually give you the reference. Then you can reminding them by January. Hi props, this is Byung. I'd like to remind you my deadline for the reference submission is February. Whenever you are ready, here is a link. Please submit your references. Thank you. You know, you have to reminding them. And if you don't get anything back from profs, reminding them again. I'm not kidding. There are always some props. They actually probably providing like 20, 30 references each semester to many different things. They might not remember everything, so you better follow up. It's your job. Prop is not gonna keep on track of all your activities. You are doing it and you're reminding them, you're providing them everything that they need to do. Here's a link. Here is a point that they're asking for, whatever, right? So I really think 1 month is not enough. It should be a few months ahead. Thank you.
Last question. Would it be fine to ask a professor for a reference if you've only taken one course with them?
That's okay. And it's one course. That's totally fine. And so, well, if you take more than one course, that's even better. But take one course is more than, sometimes you don't even take a course from the professor, but you actually had a little bit different activities you got involved with this professor. It could be possible, but not the best. So NS taking a one course means the prof knows your ability of study, and it's because he or she was able to see your essays and all those things, right? So that's the best. One is fine, more than enough. Okay, I think that's the last one, right? Thank you, Wendy. So we're gonna continue to the admission interview, and then we're gonna have another probably and it's 5 minutes, so we can actually have some remaining questions. We can continue on that. Okay, let's go. So last session that I'd like to discuss with you about admission interview, which is pretty much the last stage of any grad school application process if they are asking for the interview. So what kind of structure they are actually having is a one-on-one interview, which is just props and you, or maybe one of those admission officers with you. They might ask you. But usually one-on-one is like a little informal. Panel interview is a little bit formal. So that means they're inviting you certain day, certain schedule, and then you actually have like 15, 20 minutes or 30 minutes interview. These days, the funny thing is because of pandemic, they like to give you a like video interview and you don't actually look at the people. You actually have a question and you're recording it and they're actually seeing it later. So it's like not really the best scenario, but that happened too. So instead of this kind of interview, MMI is particular interview process for particularly medical school or any healthcare professional area, not just medical school though. So, you see the picture on the right hand corner and the bottom, they are reading a actual question, 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes, knock on the door and get in, and you answer questions for 6 to 8 minutes. It's very, very like tense moment. Because of pandemic, they don't do this. Maybe they will start doing it now. So this is something you need really special preparation. So if you need this kind of preparation, AACC actually offer this mock sessions. You have to probably take a look at our CLNX, the events calendar. November, December, or January, February, one of those times, we're gonna have a few those mock sessions, so you can actually take advantage if you are actually having any MMI interview. Informal interview is after you submit everything, you didn't hear anything back from them, but then suddenly they say, okay, we'd like to just invite you, something like that. So they actually come and you actually visiting their campus if it's allowed. And then you actually meet their profs and alumni and you have a casual talk. And that's a part of the interview process. Sometimes it's almost like orientation. So it's for them, they want to just make sure you are the last really good one. Just make sure. That's the kind of stage. So many different settings. So I like to actually give you a little bit of taste of what kind of interview question they actually have. This is something that I collect from many different places. So let's say motivation. They want to know why. So why do you want to come here instead of other school? So that's a good question, right? Because, well, you could say all those good things, but when they say, so what about the UBC? Why you didn't go to UBC? I mean, the U of T has a great program, but UBC also has it. What's the difference? They might ask, right? You actually need to know. So you got to do some research about it. And they actually directly asking about research. What are your research interests? If you're going for research degree program, that's the biggest question because they want to know. I mean, you're going to mention about your research interest, everything in your personal statement, but they, during the interview process, they might ask you again. So you have to be very clear. Okay, I mentioned in my personal statement, I'm interested in these kind of research. The reason I'm doing it, blah, 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 and maybe you can actually, oh yeah, and then I noticed Dr. somebody sitting in the panel, I actually read your papers and you would really inspire me for that matters. That's another reason I like to do this kind of research. That'll probably nail it, right? Academic trends. What do you see as the major trend in your field of study? Yeah. Do you have a good understanding about this area? Academic challenge. Okay. What do you believe your greatest challenge will be if you're accepted into this program? Yes, it's actually a good question. And you have to know yourself very well. Maybe you could be honest, but not too honest. What I mean by honest for a certain point. So you could say, well, my major was this, and this program is focusing more on this. I'm actually good at many of this, but something that I don't think I'm actually have enough knowledge and experience. So I like to upgrade myself, taking extra courses or taking extra training or talk to people. You have to give them some solution. Academic characteristic. How would you professor describe you? Well, just go with it. Like if your professor actually, so if you had actually conversation with the professor, that's a good idea. Your professor always giving you some, hey, Byung, I think you are good at that. Or maybe, Byung, I noticed you are actually interested in this. Many conversations you actually had it with the professor, and naturally you can answer this kind of question. Academic contribution. How will you contribute to our program? So tell them about something special about you. Well, I actually have developed these kind of things particularly, and I believe these things will be helpful for this, the department. Don't be shy of sharing something not so related to that academic subject. That's okay too. Maybe you could say, I was serving as a captain of badminton team for the past 2 years. And I believe that I could actually bring my activity to this the grad school, that making everybody actually have a good teamwork skill, and then I can offer some of my badminton skills, something like that. That's actually totally fine. You don't actually stick with the academic things all the time. Accomplishment, maybe something similar like what I actually shared before. Anything that you notice that this is something unique, tell them. Career is important. So what's your career plan after this program? Then you should have a answer ready. As I mentioned, you need to have a short-term career goal even before making a decision. Maybe that's something you can elaborate in this answer, or maybe you can actually develop a different one. Or you can actually even think about long-term career goal by that time. And role model, this is a common question too. If you could have a dinner with anyone, living or dead, who would it be? So you could mention your family member is fine. You know, I love to have my uncle somebody, or I like to have a dinner with Einstein, and I like to ask him about these questions. Something intriguing, not too boring. Personal, totally fine. So this is something common question, you can start with it. But when you need help, come and speak to us. Every campus, we have a career center, and they do have a career person who can give you a good advice and good practice about this mock interview session. And also, I like to tell you there is a self-practice option. So if you go to CNNX resources, career resources, and there is something called Big Interview. This is a really great tool because they actually give you an option to record yourself. Answer. They actually have a question, and you answer it, you record it, and you look at yourself, you review. Perfect. And they have a grad school application, a grad school interview questions as well. So it's a good practice for self-practice. So I'm gonna just wrap up briefly, and then I'm gonna actually open up the questions. So for the past 4 sessions, including today, we discussed all these things. So securing supervisor, letter of reference, CV and resume, and personal statement, interviews, admission test, GPA and transcript, online application is online application, and then some awards and scholarship. Among them, something you really need to refocus and always put it in your top 3 is this: letter of reference, personal or research statement, and GPA. If none of this is ready, your grad school is not going to take you in. This one has to be very, very important. Okay, so we talk about one important thing today, which is letter of reference. So that's something I want to emphasize it. And briefly, someone said, I don't want to go to grad school, but I like to study something more specific. Perfect, that's fine. So Ontario colleges, let's say, for example, or each province has those community colleges. They actually public colleges, right? They do have this central application. So in Ontario, it's ontariocolleges.ca, and try to look for some specific subject that you like to study. But I like you to click those credential area as a graduate certificate. Why? Because graduate certificate is only available for those people who finish their degree program. So that means you don't have to waste a lot of time. So it's a very short-term program. All your classmates will be someone who finished their degree. So you are actually studying with the mature students. They do have an admission interview too, but not that common. Usually they're asking for no GPA, just simply you finished it, that's good. Reference is hardly they ask for it, so I don't think you need to. But admission interview is more common. And sometimes they're asking you, give me a letter why you want to study this, that kind of statement things. So there are a few things still required, but relatively easier than going to grad school for sure. So I just want to give you this option to consider. And I just re-emphasize that making a list of all those programs you'd like to apply, because you're gonna miss some of those information, deadline, so you better do that. And get help from around everywhere. Financial aid and advising is also another good resources for you to look for when you are looking for funding. Next step, probably want to take a look at all those recordings if you need to, or contact any one of our career centers and making an appointment to discuss further. So for that matters, I also recommend you to take a look at peer services. Means we have a grad school students. I mean, U of T has a lot of grad school students, and we hire them. So they are very fresh, have a good experience how to apply and all those things. So I hire 3 students, and you can make an appointment with them and discuss about your plan. Particularly if you're developing CV and personal statement, perfect. It's they are trained for giving you advice for this. So make an appointment with them. And or if you just want to stop by and to talk to them casually, every Wednesday 11 to 12 we have this coffee chat. So please join us. And let's a little bit of resources for our discussion today. Some of those funding areas, particularly funding area, I just put those resources. So take a look at it. Again, these slides will be shared later. Let's open up some questions. So, wow, I made it everything 53 minutes. We have 7 minutes. So let's take a look at it. If we have any question, or if you like to just unmute yourself and ask a question, that's fine too. So
There's a question here,
yeah,
Byung.
thank you.
If one reference is strong, but the other is positive, but not as strong as the other one, would that decrease chances of being an eligible candidate to get accepted by grad schools?
Well, reference is a final, meanings it's not about eligibility. It's just they are not looking at your reference before getting your application. So reference is usually the last document to submit or last stage, maybe beside the information, the interview. So you better choose your reference carefully. If you know this person is not gonna give you the strong reference, you better not to. That's not gonna help anything. If you have any doubt about the reference, you better speak to that person who might give you the reference and tell them this is what I want, and I just tell them how much it's important for you and how much you appreciate for their help. You better make sure they are not gonna give you just okay reference. If you think they are only give you okay reference, why you ask them to give you the reference? That's really not a good choice. I know it's difficult to find any referee, but don't just take any referee because that's not helping. I mean, let's say you have one very, very strong reference, which is great, but usually grad school, they don't just look at just one reference, minimum 2 reference. So one is strong, one is not really good, then the admission committee is not gonna have a positive feeling about you. So something I have to make sure is you better give them a very clear message. What is this reference is for and how important it is. So when you talk to either profs or anyone else who's gonna give you the reference, don't let them think just simple casual reference. No, this is not a simple casual reference. It has to be something proof that you are qualified person for the grad school, that they have to convince the admission officers. So that's my answer for that matters. Okay. I think Wendy answered many of them, but I think there's one question.
There's another one that just came up. So it says, should I ask multiple profs to be my reference just in case the other falls through?
Absolutely. You cannot just depending on one props. So usually my suggestion is, and let's talk to 2 to 3 props to start with it, okay? And then let's say one props very positively say, yeah, no problem, let me know. And the other prop say, okay, just remind me, I might be, something like that. Then you better actually have another props just in case. So another props to talk to. So one more thing I'd like to give you this. Professors are pretty much all good. They all have a PhD and everything, but not every professor that you have met and got the classes with is not the best reference resources. Why? Because you know what, it's very, I mean, even the grad school clearly say in their reference list, please submit your reference with professors who actually gave you blah, blah, blah. They might say so. Sometimes students, they feel much more comfortable to talk to TA, and they talk to TA, can you be my reference? They might be willing to, but TA is not the best choice. They are usually PhD candidate or a master's degree student. They are not a professor yet. So TA is not the good fit. And TA knows that, and TA always giving that warning. You know what, I love to give you my reference, but it's not gonna be heavy enough to persuade the admission committee. So you have to think about that. So that's why I'm actually asking you to cultivate the relationship way before. So if your deadline is December, do it now. Start communicating with the props that you might have a slight chance now, and then talk to them detail what's your plan. Nobody wants to give you the reference if you don't have any plan. So make yourself clear plan and talk to props. And this is my plan. Would you be helping me to providing me on a reference? As long as they understand your intention clearly, most of prop at the U of T is not gonna say, no, I'm not gonna do that for you. They would love to do that, but they want to see you actually have a good plan. If you're just saying, I just want to go to grad school, would you mind just giving me a reference and I will make a decision later? Nobody gonna give you the reference. You know what I mean? Last minute thing is always not gonna make it strong reference. It's almost like I would do it anyway, but I need it, so I'm asking you. That's not working. So it's difficult, delicate, but I also had a chance to speak with the professors, and they told me quite often students are too afraid to approach them. They're just too afraid to approach them. Don't do it. Just approach them and talk to them honestly. This is what you are thinking, what you are doing. You don't have to be a brilliant student all the time. It's okay. Tell them what you need and asking them genuinely and how much you appreciate. And they are willing to help you, and they want to add some extra strengths in their reference. That's what they are going to do. So talk to them first before asking just blindly, give me a reference, right? Making a conversation before you actually request for the reference. So that's my tips. And Wendy actually making lots of good suggestions there. Thank you very much. I think that's our time. Is there any last minute question? Do I still have it, or are we okay?
I think you've already answered this one. It's about academic or references specifically. Can they have two academic profs as references, or strictly one academic and one professional?
Two academic references is way more recommended than just one academic references. Typically 2 + 1. 2 academic plus 1 professional might be good. Some professors, some grad school asking for 3 academics, which is a little bit too much. So 2 + 1 is the probably good combination. But read carefully what they're asking for. Right? There's sometimes grad school has a different requirement. But yes, that's how it is. So thank you so much for joining. And Wendy, thank you so much for accommodating and answering those questions. And thank you everybody to joining today. And good luck for your grad school. And you can actually make an appointment with any one of the career center staff. We could definitely be willing to help you. All right. So thank you so much. And you guys can receive our presentation after this. And also recording will be available on our Photo Education Showcase website. All right. Have a great day. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Byung and Wendy and Sarah. Bye.
Thanks.